If a storm creates chaos and there's wind and that wind makes waves and the waves are circle and it travels and it breaks, nature has an amazing ability to organize and create harmony of the lines. The path of least resistance is actually up, and all that energy is available for us to harvest by surfing it. So I just got back from a month-long trip in the Mentawais where I take people away on a boat trip, and the boat was the Pelagic, and it's an amazing boat. And one of the big takeaways, one of the biggest learnings that I had is actually figuring out how waves work and being able to share this information with you. So there's going to be one amazing takeaway that you're going to get from this, that you'll learn. So stick and watch to the end, and you may be amazed how this one thing is going to make you a better surfer. So look, I had this dilemma because I have unanswered questions, and one of the things that I had, if a storm creates chaos and there's wind and that wind makes waves and the waves are circle and it travels and it breaks, I'm more like, yeah, okay, I kind of buy into it. But what I didn't understand is, if the wind dissipates after like an hour or 2 hours or a day, surely the wind stops, but the swell keeps traveling through the ocean and it keeps growing, but it's undergoing interference. There's constructive energy, deconstructive energy, there's other waves, there's other wind patterns. So it didn't make sense to me in how does the wave grow? How does that energy get bigger? Because, I mean, storms that happen at the bottom of Africa travel all the way up to the top and they arrive at Indonesia, and the ocean has an amazing ability, or nature has an amazing ability to organize and create harmony of the lines. So all the destructive interference of swells drops away, but the energy becomes concentrated, that when it breaks in Indonesia, you get these perfect waves. And that spiraling energy is just this concentrated energy that we get to feel and try to ride. But that wasn't my question. The question was, how do the waves grow? Because if I go, the air spreads out and dissipates. It doesn't just grow and get bigger. And if there's a sound wave, you go, yo, it dissipates. It's not like the sound wave grows, but yet waves grow. So it got me thinking. Now, I know that a storm creates pressure and it pushes down. It's almost like a pump, all right? It pumps down. Now, energy can't be destroyed, but when it gets pushed down into the ocean gets denser and denser and denser, so the energy can't travel down. It wants to find the path of least resistance. So it turns around, and it turns out that above the water, there's air. So the path of least resistance is actually up, which kind of makes that energy want to go down and turn and go back up. Now the special thing that makes all this happen is that water has surface tension. So that when you push down on that, it creates a downward pressure. But then when that energy turns around and tries to find the path of least resistance up, right, it starts traveling up and it gets lighter and lighter, and because there's less friction against the water, and it gets to that surface tension. It doesn't just pop out, it lifts the water up and it creates a swell. So why this is interesting is that at first it was, let's just call it level, but the first pump raises the swell and then makes the pump push down harder on the surface tension, which means that wave got incrementally and minutely stronger on the down. But then the path of least resistance is up and the wave gets incrementally bigger on the up. And do you see how the pump works? Because it gets bigger on the up, it creates more downward pressure. And then the path of least resistance is up, so it gets more height. And over time, the swell gets cleaner and it gets bigger until such time it kind of hits a perfect reef and breaks. And all that energy is available for us to harvest by surfing it. The mind-blowing thing for me as a coach is that that wave, if it was not engineered to create the lift, to make the swell grow, it would dissipate. And the energy would dissipate at the storm. But the fact that the wave grows and that it creates lift makes it easier for us as surfers to ride that wave. So the water is drawing off the bottom and lifting, okay? So when we surf, if we can tap into that lift, right, it will pick us up and then we can surf the wave. I've been trying to pitch this to the surfers that I coach for years and years and years, whereby you got to do a good bottom turn. Now, most people, when they do a good bottom turn, they think you got to go down to the bottom and you got to press down on that tail. When you do that, the board stalls and you cancel out the lift and you get stuck at the bottom, you get lipped on the head, and it's not a fun experience. But the good surfers, the Mick Fannings, the John Johns, you see them actually extend, and when the wave draws up, they go up. It's kind of like being on a trampoline, all right? You get this lift and a double bounce from the trampoline. Well, the wave can double bounce you too, and it can give you lift. The problem is, as beginners, we don't see waves as this beautiful spiraling energy. We kind of see waves as, you stand up and you're going in a straight flat line from point A to point B, and they just see it as a straight flat line. And then they want to balance and all of that. And the biggest thing is that they do not want to fall. So they've got this real low down stance that is heavy, and it makes them go to the bottom of the wave. They miss the lift, or they cancel out the lift. So they end up getting stuck at the bottom of the wave where the board creates friction and slows down, and they end up getting stuck. Whereas on the flip side, all the good surfers, the Torren Martins, the Rob Machados, they go down and they extend and it looks really stylish. Or Felipe Toledo does an air, lands it and stands up straight off to the air to get better balance and control. Or John at Pipeline just casually standing up tall in a barrel. What they're doing is tapping into the lift elements of the wave, which makes surfing look effortless. And for me, that was the key. So for beginner surfers, simply going from this horrible looking poo man stance to straightening up and using your bones for balance rather than your muscle, you're straight away going to get lighter. By extending more rather than compressing and being heavy, you make your body lighter. Like being on a trampoline, you will be able to go up and tap onto that lift energy of the wave. And then when you're up, the best part is just redo the takeoff and ride down. It so happens that birds do the same thing. So when a bird learns how to fly, it first needs to learn how to create lift. So it's not just flapping the wings. What the wings actually do is they bend and they come in and they oscillate the air under the wing to create a pressure difference, and that pressure difference creates lift. And then once the birds lifted themselves up, all they need to do is just a forward tilt, they'll accelerate, an up tilt, or a left or a right, and all they've got to do is set an intention, and then the air would move the bird wherever the bird wants to go. Now, what's even better than creating a lift is actually riding the spiral thermal airways, in which case a bird just circles and it can go up and it can fly and glide effortlessly. And that got me thinking to the best surfers when they ride waves, they're just gliding on waves and it looks effortless. So the same way heat creates thermal spirals, the wave has got this spiraling energy where the water draws off the bottom and throws off the top. And all we got to do is stop flapping and start tuning into the energy of the wave, that when the wave goes up, you go up. And then you just got to set your intention to whether you want to turn, whether you want to go straight, whether you want to accelerate. And it becomes really easy to harmonize with the energy in the wave and to surf the energy in the wave. When a river flows, it meanders. The meandering allows it to control speed. So no matter if it's a slow flowing river in a dry season or if it's like torrential rains and floods, the river is able to manage the speed and power through meandering. Now, this is important. Now, the other thing that the river does to make it fresh and healthy, it basically needs to take the rocks off the bottom of the water and lift them up and put all of the necessary metals and nutrients and all that kind of stuff into the river to make it healthy. But it's also got to take oxygen from the top and oxygenate the water so that the fish can swim and breathe and the animals and plants can thrive. So what it does is the water spirals. The bottom of the river, the water is colder and denser, and it's able to lift up. Then the top of the water, because it's lighter, it's able to accelerate down to make it penetrate and go deeper. So that river is engineered to meander and spiral, and it gives it the energy to put oxygen and nutrients and all that kind of stuff back into it. So it makes it life-sustaining. Now, the mind-blowing thing is that waves do the same thing. It takes energy from the North and South Pole, from those big storms, and they travel to the equator. And it takes that energy, it harmonizes it into clean lines. And then when that energy reaches the shoreline, it contracts the energy into a spiral that then helps to oxygenate the water, making the water cleaner, healthier, better for the fish, better for the plant life. And the more energy that wave has, the healthier it is. And as surfers, we're able to participate and tap into that energy if we're smart enough to know what to do, how to do, and where to do. In pipes, the water starts to go through there and it creates a harmonic resonance. And it starts to spiral through the pipe, and it travels through the pipe with the least amount of resistance and the maximum amount of speed and energy and power, which makes sense that when a wave breaks, that wave, trying to follow the path of least resistance, will naturally want to spiral. And by doing that, it will reach the least amount of resistance, allowing that wave to travel as fast as possible and enabling us to potentially enjoy a really good ride or an incredible barrel. Another great little thing that I picked up on the boat is the difference between explosive and implosive. So when something is explosive, the energy disperses and it's lost. But when something is implosive, the energy isn't lost. It can be converted into more energy. So a really good idea of this is a tornado, where you can actually see the energy, or a whirlpool where you can see the energy and it's self-sustaining. So another thing that's implosive energy is a wave, and the wave draws the water inwards and helps it to spiral versus pushing it out and dissipating the energy. So when we surf a wave, if we, when we bottom turn, lean into that, using centripetal force, like when you ride a bicycle, you lean in, and when you top turn, you lean in, you're going to be sucked in to that spiral vortex, which is allowing you to surf implosively versus standing flat on your board. And when the wave draws, your energy is explosive and you're losing energy rather than using that energy to help you create the lift and to surf effortlessly. One of the best ways to go about creating that change is doing it in an environment that's a bit more secure, where you can get the reps. So I'm not a massive fan on surf skates, because if you do it on the road, that's like going left, right, left, right, left, right in the flats. And surfing is more 3D, it's not 1D. But by getting in a bowl and learning how to compress and extend in a bowl and get the feeling right, get the timing right, get your posture right, start synchronizing your joints properly so they fire when you feel the ups and you compress when you feel the downs, and starting to harmonize the compression and extension, teaching your body how to move and what to feel, then taking that back into the water. And then when you tune into the energy, do what you train and what you know, that is when you see incredible results. It's one thing understanding it, it's another thing doing it all together. I was so stoked, and I went like, everyone on the boat, here's this information, here's the knowledge, and they all knew it, they didn't trust it, and were really hesitant to do it. It's kind of like their brain was going, oh, watch out for the risks, don't do this, don't do that. But when they just gave it a go after doing it wrong or missing out. They didn't just do it first time. Some of them only did it on the last day of a 10-day trip. And when they did it, they were like, holy crap, it's so much better. It's so much easier. It gives me speed. I go top to bottom. I use more of the wave. My turns are better. It's like the list was just go. So the benefits are incredible, but making the change to actually want to do it was extremely difficult. I ended up having the best trip. My guests on the boat, when they started to use the uplift, went from maybe enjoying 10 to 20% of that wave's energy to suddenly tapping into a whole nother mind-blowing understanding of what it is to actually surf. And to see the happy smiles of all the guests on the boat was incredible. And I thought that is something that if I could share that one thing with you guys, I think my job's done.